Ethan Walker first noticed something was wrong when his neighbors stopped waving and started watching. The townhouse complex had always been quiet, too quiet. Ethan liked it that way. As a remote cybersecurity analyst, his work demanded long hours of concentration, and this neighborhood gave him what he wanted most: invisibility. No loud kids, no block parties, no nosy neighbors. Just rows of identical houses and people who minded their own business. Until they didn't. It started with the looks. At first, Ethan thought he was imagining it. He'd pull into his driveway after a grocery run and catch someone glancing away too quickly. He'd walk the dog at dusk and feel eyes on his back. One evening, Rachel stopped in the middle of the sidewalk. "Do you feel that?" she whispered. "Feel what?" "Like we're being measured." Ethan laughed nervously. "You're overthinking." But later that night, when he took the trash out, he saw Mark Holloway, the HOA vice president, standing across the street pretending to check his phone and staring straight at their house. Ethan's stomach tightened. This wasn't friendly curiosity. It was surveillance. And whatever they were watching for, Ethan had a feeling they had already decided he was it. The first warning didn't come from the HOA, it came from someone who didn't want to be seen. The note was folded neatly and slipped under Ethan's front door. No logo, no name. Just 3 words written in shaky ink. "They are watching." Ethan stood there holding it, heart beating harder than it should have for such a small piece of paper. Rachel read it twice. "This isn't a prank." "Who would leave this?" Ethan whispered. That same afternoon, Linda Holloway knocked on their door with a warm smile and a clipboard. "Just a friendly HOA check-in," she said. "We're making sure everyone is following community guidelines." Her eyes drifted past Ethan into the house, like she was taking inventory. "Everything okay?" she asked. Ethan forced a smile. "Of course." But the note burned in his pocket, because someone had tried to warn them, and someone else was pretending everything was fine. The truth isn't what the camera showed, it's what it didn't. That night, Ethan installed a small security camera above the front door, not because he wanted to spy, because he wanted to feel safe. The first night, nothing happened. The second night, nothing happened. On the third night, Ethan woke up to a motion alert at 2:14 a.m. He opened the feed. The front porch was empty, but something was wrong. The bushes across the walkway were moving, slowly, as if someone had just stepped out of view. Rachel sat up. Was someone there? Ethan zoomed in. For a half second, he caught it. A shadow, not passing by, standing still, watching the door. Then it vanished. Ethan didn't go back to sleep, because whatever was happening, it wasn't random. The longest residents are always the ones who know it the most and fear it the most. The next morning, Mrs. Evelyn Price knocked quietly. She didn't smile. "I saw your light on all night," she whispered. "That means they noticed you." Ethan frowned. "Who?" She looked around before answering. "The board." Rachel felt a chill. "They just watch people?" Mrs. Price nodded slowly. "They choose who belongs and who doesn't." "What happens to people who don't?" Ethan asked. Mrs. Price hesitated. "They move," she said, "or worse." Then she walked away before Ethan could ask what worse meant. When people knock with clipboards instead of keys, it's never just a visit. That afternoon, Mark and Linda Holloway arrived together. 2 smiles, 2 clipboards. "Routine HOA inspection," Mark said pleasantly. "Just checking compliance." "We didn't schedule anything," Rachel said. Linda's smile didn't move. "We don't have to." They stepped inside without waiting. Mark walked slowly through the living room, eyes scanning shelves, doors, corners. "Nice place," he said. Quiet people like you usually don't last here." Ethan froze. "What does that mean?" Mark looked at him, still smiling. "It means," he said softly, "we notice everything." And Ethan realized the truth. This wasn't about rules. It was about control. They didn't accuse Ethan of breaking rules. They accused him of not fitting in. 2 hours after the inspection, Ethan received an email from the HOA. HOA notice, suspicious activity reported. No details, no evidence, just a warning. Rachel read it aloud. Suspicious of what? Ethan opened the attached file. A blurry photo. Their own living room window, taken from outside. Someone had been watching them. Mark followed up with a message. "The board is concerned about your behavior." Behavior. Ethan's hands started to shake. He wasn't being fined. He was being profiled. The day the neighbors stopped talking to Ethan was the day he realized the HOA had already made a decision. It happened slowly, too slowly to feel like an attack at first. The woman across the street used to wave. Now she looked down at her phone when Ethan walked past. The man who jogged every morning stopped taking the route near their house. Kids stopped riding their bikes in front of Ethan's driveway. And one night, as Ethan took the trash out, he heard voices behind him. "That's the house." He turned. 2 neighbors went silent, then walked away. Rachel felt it too. "It's like we're contagious," she whispered. Ethan checked the camera logs, multiple motion alerts every night, always from the same angle, always facing their front door. Someone was making sure they knew they were being watched. The most dangerous decisions are the ones made when you're not in the room. Ethan found out about the HOA meeting by accident. A neighbor had left a flyer in the mailbox by mistake, an agenda for a special board session. One item was highlighted in bold. Unit 14B, Behavioral Review. That was their address. No invitation, no notice, just judgment scheduled without them. Rachel stared at the paper. "They're deciding our future without us." That night, Ethan sat by the window watching the HOA office lights turn on, and he knew, whatever they were planning, it wouldn't be fair. The camera didn't show who was watching, it showed how organized it was. At 1:37 a.m., Ethan's phone buzzed again, motion detected. This time, the feed didn't go empty. 3 figures stood across the street, silhouettes under a streetlight, not moving, not talking, just facing Ethan's house. After 20 seconds, one of them raised a phone. A flash. They were taking pictures. Ethan saved the footage with shaking hands. Rachel whispered, "This is stalking." Ethan nodded, and for the first time, he realized something terrifying. This wasn't paranoia, it was preparation. The nightmare became official the moment it arrived in writing. The HOA letter came by certified mail, notice of compliance hearing. They were accusing Ethan of unauthorized electronic surveillance, disturbing community harmony, and behavior inconsistent with HOA values. Rachel laughed bitterly. "They're saying we're the threat?" Ethan read the last line twice. Failure to cooperate may result in forced relocation. They weren't just watching, they were trying to erase him. The HOA expected Ethan to panic. They didn't expect him to document everything. Ethan sat in the dark living room, laptop open, camera feeds playing on the screen like security footage from a crime scene. Every timestamp, every shadow, every photo taken of his house. He created a digital timeline. Rachel watched him quietly. "What are you doing?" "I'm building something they can't deny," he said. Then he noticed something strange. One of the silhouettes from the street matched the height and walk of Mark Holloway. The HOA wasn't just watching him, it was watching him personally. The truth finally came out, whispered, not shouted. Mrs. Price knocked again, hands shaking. "They did this to my son," she whispered. "He asked too many questions. The board labeled him unstable." "What happened?" asked Rachel. "They fined him, watched him, until he left town." Ethan felt cold. They didn't want him gone, they wanted him quiet. And now Ethan knew. This wasn't new, it was a system. The moment they tried to scare Ethan, they left proof. Mark Holloway came to the door that night. "No more cameras, you're violating privacy." Ethan kept his voice steady. "You were outside my house." Mark's eyes flickered. "You don't have proof." Ethan slowly turned the laptop so Mark could see the footage. Mark went pale. Once Ethan made the call, there was no going back. Ethan called Detective Ryan Cole, not to complain, to report organized stalking. When Cole saw the footage, his face changed. "This isn't coincidence," he said. "This is coordinated." Someone had crossed a line. The scariest moment isn't when something happens, it's when you're waiting for it to. The HOA went silent. No emails, no visits, just cameras watching. Rachel whispered, "They're planning something." Ethan stared at the dark screen. "Let them," he said. "Now they're the ones being watched." Detective Ryan Cole didn't look shocked by Ethan's footage. He looked like he'd seen it before. Detective Cole arrived in an unmarked car just after sunset. No flashing lights, no uniform, nothing to warn the HOA that the system had finally been invited inside their game. He stepped into Ethan's living room, scanned the camera screens, then the windows, then the front door, like he was mapping exits. "You said you have proof of organized stalking?" he said. Ethan didn't speak. He simply pressed play. The video showed the silhouettes under the streetlight, the phone flash, the same angle night after night, the inspection that wasn't scheduled, the certified letter threatening forced relocation. Cole watched without blinking. When it ended, he leaned back and exhaled slowly. "This isn't just nosy neighbors," he said. "This is organized intimidation." Rachel's voice trembled. "Can they really force us out?" Cole's jaw tightened. "Not legally, but some groups don't need legality. They use pressure, paperwork, and fear until people leave on their own." Ethan swallowed. "So what do we do?" Cole looked at the camera over the door. "We do what they hate most," he said. "We make it official and we make it visible." The HOA thought Ethan was alone. They didn't know a detective was watching from the dark. Cole didn't confront Mark and Linda. He didn't call the HOA office. He didn't announce anything. Instead, he built a quiet net. He asked Ethan for everything: emails, notices, photos, names, meeting agendas. He pulled the records for prior complaints in the neighborhood. And he did one more thing that made Rachel's skin crawl. He parked near the complex after midnight. Ethan didn't know until later. Cole told him casually, "I watched your house for 2 hours, and I saw movement." Rachel's breath caught. "You saw them?" Cole nodded. 2 people approached from the side street. One stood under the streetlight, the other stayed in the shadow. They didn't knock, they didn't trespass, they just observed. Ethan felt his stomach tighten. "That's exactly what the camera catches." Cole stared at him. "Which means your camera footage is real, and the timing is routine." Routine. Not random. That word turned Ethan's fear into something sharper. Because routines are planned. Ethan thought the HOA's weapon was fines until he realized it was isolation. The next day, it got worse, but not in a way that made noise. Ethan walked to his mailbox and felt it immediately. The air changed when he stepped outside. People moved away, conversations stopped, doors closed, and it wasn't subtle anymore. A neighbor he'd waved to for months finally spoke. "We're not supposed to talk to you," the man said quietly, without looking him in the eye. Ethan froze. "Who said that?" The neighbor swallowed hard. "Mark said it's for the neighborhood." Then he walked away like he'd just confessed something illegal. Rachel's hands shook as she grabbed Ethan's arm. "They're turning everyone against us." Cole didn't look surprised when Ethan told him. "That's their method," Cole said. "They isolate the target, then label the target as a threat. Once everyone believes you're dangerous, you become defenseless." Ethan's voice went low. "So they're not just watching us," Cole said. "They're recruiting witnesses, even fake ones." And that sentence made Ethan's blood run cold. Because fake witnesses don't exist unless someone is preparing a bigger move. When Ethan walked into the HOA meeting, he realized it was never a meeting, it was a courtroom without a judge. Cole insisted Ethan attend the compliance hearing, not alone. Cole sat in the back row, dressed like an ordinary resident, hoodie, cap, no badge, just eyes. The meeting room was packed, not with concern, with curiosity. Mark Holloway stood at the front like a man who enjoyed control. Linda sat beside him, neat papers arranged, smiling gently like she was about to help. Ethan's name was called like a verdict. They read accusations aloud: surveillance activities, disturbing the peace, unstable behavior, threatening neighbors. Ethan's chest tightened. "This is insane." Mark's voice was smooth. "We are simply protecting the community." Then something shocking happened. A woman stood up, someone Ethan barely recognized. "He watches people," she said. "I saw his camera. It made me feel unsafe." Another man followed. "He's always outside at night, standing there like he's waiting." Ethan stared. It was a script. The words were too similar, the timing too perfect, the fear too rehearsed. Rachel whispered, "They coached them." Cole leaned forward slightly, eyes locked on Mark. And in that moment, Ethan understood what the HOA had built: a social execution. Mark didn't make a mistake in anger. He made one in confidence. Ethan finally spoke. He didn't plead, he didn't argue emotionally, he asked one question. "If I'm such a threat," Ethan said, voice steady, "why was a photo taken of my living room window from outside my house?" The room went quiet. Mark blinked once. Linda's smile twitched. Ethan continued, "And why do the same two silhouettes appear at 1:30 a.m. in my camera footage night after night standing under the streetlight watching my door?" Mark laughed, but it sounded forced. "You're paranoid." Ethan turned his phone toward the room. He played the clip, the shadows, the flash, the staring. Gasps filled the room. Then Mark made the worst mistake possible. He snapped, loud enough for everyone, "Turn that off! That's not allowed!" Cole stood up instantly. He didn't raise his voice, he simply showed his badge. "Actually," Detective Cole said calmly, "it's allowed, and now it's evidence." Mark's face drained, Linda froze, and the room finally understood they weren't watching Ethan, they were watching a cover-up. The moment fear changed sides, the truth finally had space to breathe. The HOA meeting room felt different now, not tense, awake. People stared at Mark and Linda like they were seeing them for the first time. Whispers spread, phones came out. Mrs. Evelyn Price stood up slowly. "They did this to my son," she said, voice shaking. "They watched him, fined him, until he left town." Others began to speak. Stories poured out, quiet threats, strange fines, unexplained visits. Detective Cole watched it all. "This is what intimidation looks like," he said, and no one argued. The HOA wasn't watching Ethan, they were looking for something. Cole revealed what his investigation had uncovered. Several homes in the complex were being used to hide illegal financial activity through HOA-controlled maintenance contracts, fake invoices, shell companies. They needed quiet residents, people who wouldn't ask questions. Ethan had asked too many, and once he noticed the watching, he became a liability. Power doesn't fight when it knows it's lost, it freezes. Police arrived. Mark and Linda were escorted out past the same residence they had once controlled. No shouting, no drama, just cuffs, and a room full of people realizing how close they'd come to being victims. The most peaceful sound is when fear leaves. Days passed. The cameras around Ethan's house went quiet. Neighbors spoke again. Mrs. Price brought cookies. Rachel slept through the night. For the first time in weeks, the building felt human. The most terrifying thing isn't being watched, it's being chosen. Ethan removed the camera, not because he forgot, but because he no longer had to prove anything. He realized something that would stay with him forever. People weren't watching him because he was dangerous, they were watching him because he was honest. And in a system built on fear, honesty is the most threatening thing there is.